Happy New Year with some new orchids from Brookside. The box is as tall as my kitchen counter. 4 new orchids in this unboxing video coming up at the Orchid Hut. Welcome back to the Orchid Hut. My name is Dana, and today we are going to have some fun unboxing, unpackaging 4 new orchids that I purchased online from Brookside. I believe Brookside is in California, and it is, I think, just on the outskirts of San Jose. So if you're in that area, you could likely visit their nursery locally. But for me, here along the Gulf Coast of Texas, I have to purchase their orchids online. I have had really good success with the purchases that I have made from them over the years. Their packaging, as you can see in front of the camera, is phenomenal. Everything is individually packaged with supportive stakes and then brown paper wrapping around each individual orchid. And I'm sure when we actually get some of the outer layers of the wrapping off, we'll see the phenomenal job that they've also done probably keeping the media from falling out. These are straight as I have pulled them out of the box. There was no loose media, floating around inside the box. There was no moisture inside the box, which is always a good indication that these were not packaged while they were too wet. And we're going to start with the large one right here. I happen to know what this one is because I did the order. And the orchid is not necessarily 3 feet tall, but it is in a wire basket, I think. So that's the reason why the size of this, seems pretty large here. Okay, so I am going to get the smaller package out of the way, and I'll be right back to unwrap this largest orchid. As always, if you enjoy this video or learn something new, please give it a thumbs up. The subscribe button is beneath the video, and don't forget the notifications bell to let you know when I have posted something new. Okay, be right back. All right, so ready to unwrap the first orchid here. Generally, all you need is a pair of good scissors to get the wrapping off. If I have to get another tool, I might have to pause the video to go get it. And there's sort of a cellophane wrapping here. We'll take that off first and get it out of the way. This is an orchid that I have been wanting to add to my collection for a couple of years now. I do not have one like this in my collection, so it will be a new experience attempting to grow it. Now, on the bottom of this package, I don't know if you can tell on camera, but there is some moisture here. This sometimes happens. It's usually better to ship orchids without a lot of moisture inside the box. This particular one, however, is a bit of a moisture lover, so it's probably not going to hurt in this case. But when you receive your orchids, you probably need to unbox them ASAP. Don't let them sit in the box for days. I actually received this, not last night, but the night before. It was very late in the evening when they were delivered. And so I brought them in the house, and I just unopened the top of the box so that they could have some air circulation. And then yesterday, I really wanted to get around to getting these out of the box, but I landed with a bit of a migraine headache, and your head hurts pretty bad if you can't even you know, look at the new orchids that you've purchased. You have to kind of be feeling pretty bad not to get in there and look at the new orchids. But 2 or 3 times a year I'll get a migraine headache, and it's pretty debilitating, and all I really want is sleep in a very dark room. So that was yesterday. Today, everything much better, so we're actually completely unwrapping these today. All right. So here we are. Would anyone like to make a guess what this orchid is? Let me get the paper out of the way and I'll give you a closer look. Just at first glance, it is a beauty. Okay, so again, you can tell, you know, really excellent packaging here around the top of the plant. It's a matter of cutting the tape away and removing the cloud of padded cotton cushioning. And I don't think this orchid is particularly fragile, but you know, you do want to be careful not to cut anything at this point that damages the orchid. Anybody have any good guesses yet? If you've followed my channel for a while, you'll know that I don't have one of these. Many people, I think, choose not to grow them. They do have some requirements that are maybe a little bit different in order to enjoy the blooms. Another hint is that the blooms are going to come from the bottom of the basket, which is a little bit different. Okay. Get the final bit of tape off. Okay. Let's look at the tag and then we'll inspect the plant a bit more closely. So this is Stanhopea. So it is a primary hybrid, a cross between 2 species. And I'll put a picture of the bloom up on the screen so that you can see what it looks like, hopefully, when it decides to bloom. Okay. So what you'll notice is that it's planted in an open weave basket with a good bit of sphagnum. The sphagnum is moist. There are a number of root tips showing through the sphagnum moss as I turn the pot here. And this is how this one grows. It also sends up root tips towards the top of the pot, and in the wild that sort of acts as a nest to capture debris, which in the wild would be this orchid's only source of fertilizer, so to speak. Very, very pretty green leaves here. And when it blooms, it will send the bloom spikes down towards the bottom. And that's the reason for putting this in some sort of open weave basket, because if the blooms as they are developing run into any sort of block in the pot, I do believe the blooms will abort and not form correctly. So the only good blooms you will get will be the ones that find their way out of the openings in the pot. Now this one is in really great shape. It is a mature plant. I'm sure it's relatively close to blooming size, if not already. I don't see anything outside the pot that would indicate that it has bloomed in the past. At some point after this one, adjusts to my environment, I'm going to be moving it to a wire basket that actually has larger openings down here, and I've already purchased that basket ahead of time because I think eventually there will be blooms that will not make it out of this plastic net pot. Some very large bulbs on top of the plant, so you can kind of tell that this one does have some maturity to it. There is one new growth right here, and then there is another new growth right here down at the bottom, and there was something coming out the side of the pot here, and this is often how blooms will emerge as well. They'll sort of come from the bottom, but this does not look like a bloom. This looks like another growth that's happening from there. Okay, so of course this one will be in quarantine for about 10 days. Not that there's anything wrong with the orchids that Brookside sends, but it's just something that you want to do as an extra precaution, not to introduce anything into your own growing environment that you might not already be struggling with. And yeah, I'm just going to be giving this one ample amounts of light for the rest of the winter, and then it will be going outside in probably a more shaded area initially until I see how it does in our Texas humidity and heat. Okay, very, very happy with this orchid, and I'll be right back with the other three. Okay, so on to the next three new orchids. Now these are smaller, so they put them inside one cellophane sleeve here. Let's get rid of this part of the wrapping because it does make a lot of crinkling noise. And then they are, let's see, taped together? Yeah, taped together at the bottom. Let me get all three separated and then we'll take one at a time. Okay, so I'm going to set these two over to the side, and we'll take this one first. Now, since all of these are similar in size, I don't know which one this is, although I am remembering all of the ones that I ordered. This particular one does not seem to have the wetness at the bottom that the first one did, so that's a good sign. There's a bit of glue holding the brown paper wrapping together, so let me pull that apart. I know it's making a lot of noise. So let's get rid of the brown wrapping. And the cotton is stapled here. So I'm either going to have to pull the staple out or figure out how to cut around it. I think in this particular instance I would have preferred tape, because it is taking a little bit of effort to work this staple out. And I wouldn't want these staples to end up on the floor. Like, you can pull it apart for some of the way, and then, yeah, I have to say personally I'm not crazy about the staples, because I wouldn't want those to get lost on the floor. Okay. All right, this is rather interesting. Let me get this one staple picked up. I'll get rid of the cotton. Cycnokes. And the name of this one is Giant Swan. Species name Chlorochilon, as best I can tell, crossed with itself. Now, this is related to one of my favorite orchids, which is my Catasetum collection. And the care for this one is extremely similar to that. And lo and behold, this one has a bloom spike. That is pretty awesome. Now, these particular orchids tend to bloom before they drop all of their leaves and go dormant. So it will be interesting to see this one bloom and then watch this particular orchid go into dormancy. And of course, I'll be moving it into a larger pot for the next growing season. But oh my goodness, isn't this just the most spectacular thing? And I even get to now look forward to a bloom. So again, really, really happy with this purchase. It's in the tiniest of pots with very, very dry, well, sort of dampish sphagnum moss. So this one was probably still being watered a bit because it is not, in dormancy yet. So this one is probably going to need a trickle of water for a bit longer, until I start noticing the leaves start to drop. All right, again, very, very happy with this purchase. A sort of new orchid to my collection. It's similar to a Catasetum, but not exactly the same, different genus. So, yeah, all right. I'll set this one aside, and that one is a little bit top heavy. I'm gonna have to maybe put it in something so it doesn't fall over. Okay, on to the next one. I think this is an awesome holiday, New Year gift to myself. If I had ordered a Tolumnia, it would have been like the perfect order. But I didn't see any Tolumnias that I wanted to add to this order, so maybe next time. Wow, nice big tall package, very, very tiny orchid. Just the slightest hint of an orchid at the top of that pot. I think I have gone from largest to smallest all in one orchid order. And this is the kind of unpackaging that you want to be really cautious with because you can't really see where the orchid is. And, careful in a situation like this because there is a root caught up in the tape. And, if you're careful, you can separate that without damage. There's another one caught in the tape. There's some large bark coming out now, mostly because I have the orchid on its side. And I'm going to go ahead and pull out this gigantic stake because this stake was just needed for shipping, to keep the orchid from falling to one end of the box and getting damaged. So the stake sort of holds all of the plants in position while they're being shipped. It's not necessarily the case that the orchid needs that stake. And in fact, this one is taped to the outside of the pot. let's add these pieces of bark back. Now this one is extremely loosely potted with these pieces of bark. It's a round pot inside of a rectangular pot, and the roots have extended themselves down into the rectangular pot, so I'm not going to pull on it and try to take it out right at the moment. This one is, used to be called Neophoenicia, but now Vanda Falcata, and it's called Magenta Queen, and it's crossed with Vanda Falcata Purple Angel. So the reason that I added this one to my collection is because I have a really pretty white Vanda Falcata that grows in my bay window on the moss mound. And that particular orchid does so well in the bay window that I wanted to add another one at some point on its own little moss mound. And this is going to be that orchid. It has a pink bloom when it blooms instead of the white one like I have. So let me step over here for just a second. And I've been saving this other little sort of coordinating Neophoenicia Vanda Falcata piece of ceramic pottery for the next moss mound. So at some point we'll be having a creative orchid video to put this one on the moss mound in this pot. So I'm looking forward to that project as well. For now, this one is going to be in the same little 10-day quarantine, and then I will put this one in the bay window probably towards the front, because I do think, because of how this is, it's going to need to be sort of monitored and misted, watered a bit differently from how I water the other orchids in the bay window. But nonetheless, really nice little orchid. It's, what I would have expected for this particular Vanda Falcata. Okay, let's go on to the last orchid. I'll get some of this out of the way. Okay. Last one. Exciting and sad all at the same time. This one is not feeling particularly damp or anything. Neither did the last one. The Vanda Falcatas don't like to stay wet. They like a very distinct wet-dry cycle, so they like to be watered and then dry for a number of days. My other Vanda Falcata in the window during the winter gets watered about every 10 to 14 days, and then it dries in about 2 or 3 days, and then it stays dry until the next watering. So they're actually pretty easy to maintain if you can find the right environment for them with enough light to encourage them to bloom. Okay, so let me see again the staples with the cotton. I would prefer tape if anyone from Brookside is watching, which I seriously doubt. Okay. I'm just gonna avoid the staples here and try to just cut this off. And or tear, because I can't really see where I'm cutting. It's a little bit tedious sometimes, but I would rather go slow and not damage the orchid than to be in a hurry and in a state of haste and then damage something. Okay, so in this case, it paid to maybe not just go steam ahead with the scissors, because there were some roots on the side of the pot. Okay, now This has definitely turned into the orchid order with some new genera for my collection, because again, this is one I don't have. It will be entirely experimental. Let me get all of this off, and then I'll show you the name. Okay. Cute little thing. Seems to be potted mostly in sphagnum. This one again is a little bit damp, which is okay. It does have a few little weeds at the top of the pot. And there's something on the other side here that is very interesting. This one is Gastrochilus bellinus. Oh goodness, I'm gonna have fun with this one. So, a species orchid from Myanmar, Thailand, South China, and or Laos. But look right here. That looks like some sort of bloom. Yeah. It doesn't seem to be broken, although it is sort of laying very flat there. Likely because it was continuing to develop under that cotton. You know, another reason for not leaving your orchids in the shipping box for too long. Roots look in good shape, a lot of them coming out of the pot, sort of more as air roots. One broken root right here, but not anything too serious. There are still some growing root tips on some of the roots. This is likely, you know, a first-time bloomer. You know, this one is going to just have very, what I would call, sort of intermediate treatment for a while. You know, I don't know if that bloom is going to continue to develop, because it is sort of spiking in a very stressful situation here with the change in environment and the shipping, and, you know, depending on where I place it in my house. And so this one is probably going to be babied for a little while. But still, a very, very cute orchid. Very interested in seeing what this one does in the future. But again, you know, another fun one to experiment with. Okay, so I'm going to bring the last three back on camera here. The Stanhopea is a little bit too large. And this one is very top heavy. I'm going to need to put this one in something so it doesn't topple over. All right, 4 new orchids for 2024. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you learned something new or enjoyed this unboxing video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, consider doing so. And the subscribe button is coming up in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So thank you all so much for watching. Happy holiday season, Happy New Year, and I will see you again in 2024.